Hello, you're watching Hornbill TV's newsroom. In the month of October this year, the familiar Lady Justice statue, long associated with courts and legal institutions, has been redesigned by the Supreme Court of India as part of an effort to move away from its colonial legacy. Traditionally depicted with a blindfold and a sword, the statue's updated version removes the blindfold and replaces the sword with the Constitution, signaling a new era for Indian justice. The move was led by now retired Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, who emphasized that the law is not blind. It sees everyone equally. Not only Lady Justice, but the central government in the month of July replaced the three criminal laws, the 1860 Indian Penal Code, the 1973 Code of Criminal Procedure and the 1872 Indian Evidence Act respectively, with the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita and the Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam that came to effect on July 1st. With such advancements in the Indian judiciary, but here in Nagaland, majority of the people still get confused over the application of Indian law in Nagaland, and which is mainly due to the rights enshrined in Article 371A of the Indian Constitution that safeguards matters relating to the Naga religion, social practices, customary law, land rights and civil and criminal justice without the consent of the State Assembly, even though passed in the Parliament. In today's newsroom, we'll look at the criminal justice system in Nagaland in particular. We will also try and find out the importance of the customary law courts, the importance of the village councils in handing out justice to the victims of certain crimes, and we'll try and gauge if the application of the Indian legal system in Nagaland is actually a feasible option or not. And to join me on this special newsroom, we've got our associate editor Almuli, and we will both be speaking on this topic and try and gauge over the Indian legal system versus Article 371, or rather the customary law or the criminal justice system in Nagaland. First of all, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on this special newsroom. Well, sir, the matter has just been put before you. Well, today we will be discussing about the criminal justice system that is applicable in the country of India, and also the criminal justice system that is applicable only for the state of Nagaland, since we are protected by Article 371A. Well, so over the past few months or over the past few years, Hornbill TV has been reporting about crimes such as murder, theft, abductions, extortion, and we see that most of the cases are coming from Dimapur or Kohima or proper districts. Do you believe that very less cases are reported to the police stations, and rather more cases are lodged in the village councils in the state of Nagaland? And why do you think such phenomenon is taking place in Nagaland, where justice in India is supposed to be equal for all?
Yeah, Kevin, I think the reason why the community leaderships continue to hold a lot of influence in the law and order administration, especially in a state like Nagaland, is because the whole idea of justice enforcement, the way we see it, is not through the eyes of a constitution and a set of laws that I think people from the rural communities, they look at it as a foreign tool. That is one thing. And there have been instances in the past when someone had stolen a pig and chicken, and even if it's just stealing a pen, normally that's a criminal act, and by what the Indian Penal Code used to work, you're supposed to approach the police station in that regard. So now these days, if the crime is in the magnitude of, let's say, a serious action such as murder or rape or theft, then I think it's easier for the villagers or the rural communities to approach the police in this regard, where they feel that their sense of justice will be fulfilled only by the laws that the government of India gave us. But if it is something to do with, let's say, divorce, it is something to do with someone stealing your chicken, and which are not necessarily considered important enough for us to go to the police station, then I think we would go to the village councils. Now, the reason is that, although, to be fair, we have always put a lot of weight on Naga customary laws.
Yes.
And I think it's one of our points of pride.
Yes.
The thing is that those days, acts such as, let's say, sexual assault or rape,
Yes.
they were not common.
Yes.
Murder was also not common according to what we heard when we were growing up.
Yes.
So it was taboo. These criminal acts, they were taboo in that regard. So the communities and the villages did not have any kind of mechanism to address this kind of, I'm not saying there were none, I'm just saying they were generally considered severe taboo.
Yes.
So the laws do not have, the Naga laws do not have any mechanism to address this kind of criminal acts. So it is somewhat easier for the village communities to look at a larger enforcement apparatus as something that is alien from the kind of justice they would want. So it's easier for them to go to the village councils and to lodge their cases and get redress. And second, is very accessible.
Yes.
We look at the police stations in the outskirts, look at Pandari, for example. It's right at the border, and I think it should actually be having one of the most developed police apparatuses in the border areas, but it's still an outpost, for example. And people will not like to travel all the way from their villages to the towns to get their cases lodged. So it is somewhat convenient because the village is there, it's right there at their doorstep. So it's easier for the villagers, the rural communities to go to the nearest community leadership to get their work done. Another thing is, again, if they don't go to the community villages, they go to the Naga underground groups. And I think this is a very common phenomenon. Another thing is, generally community in Nagaland have never really been trustful or the trusting of the police system in Nagaland. And way back in 2007, 2008, there were articles in the newspaper about why villagers
Yes.
and even Naga people in general do not trust the Nagaland police force. Now it is changed now, things are changing, and I think we have one of the more capable police organizations this side of India. And if it might be not one of the best, but it is working and it is trying its best. But even those days there were people who were not really sure how to address the whole the performance gap that the police allegedly had those days. So there was a word of caution, there was a word of distrust in this regard that the police administration in Nagaland would be able to dispense justice. So these are some of the main reasons why, although we have an elaborate set of laws given to us by the Constitution of India and the Government of India, I think it is easier and more convenient for most people in states such as Nagaland to approach their community leaderships and their village councils to seek and to avail justice.
All right, so you just brought out a very important point, which stated that the Naga customary law was not so used to the fact with the Indian legal system in which there were certain crimes that were severely taboo. All right, now in that context, as a Naga, if you belong to a tribe, then you also belong to a sub-tribe of that particular tribe. And you've got clans and you've got various clans even amongst one particular tribe. Well, just very recently, sir, in my conversation with Nsimonguli, who is the co-founder, who is one of the founding members of the ACOUT, or Against Corruption and Unabated Taxation, during my conversation with him, sir, he brought out a very interesting point or fascinating point in which he stated that he took an example from his own village and his clan, in which it stated that when two people got married in his village belonging to the same clan, they were chucked out of the village by the village council. Now they're settled in Woka and they're doing well. Then he gave another instance in which there was a man who was caught for murder, and then he was too excommunicated from the village, but then he settled into Woka and now he's a successful businessman. In this regard, don't you think the whole application of law is going to be so diverse and intricate? Because just recently when Chief Minister Nupi Rio had attended the civil service meet, he had stated that Nagaland is very unique because now we've got 17 tribes. So we can only imagine from this 17 tribes how many sub-tribes will be there, and even clans. So don't you think this is going to be a very intricate subject, and justice for each tribe will be very distinct from each other? Don't you think that is going to cause a huge problem in the way customary law is actually practiced there in Nagaland?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I edited the book, The Rules and the History of Gamburas in Nagaland.
Yes.
That was published recently. I think it was in 2023.
Yes.
So I edited that one.
Yes.
And it was by the former commissioner and secretary.
Yes.
And in that book is a set of rules or local laws that the community leaderships implemented in the villages. Now, a very interesting thing about that book is that if you go through the rules, the regulations, the customary laws across all the communities in the Woka area,
Yes.
because that book talk about the customary laws of the Lotha people, generally, almost all of them are same. Like there is no diversity in the way these laws were to be implemented. It was more in the nature of crime commission and justice enforcement.
Yes.
So the rules did not vary in the sense that almost all the clans, all the villages in Woka, or at least according to the author, they all followed the same pattern, and there was not much differences in the way one village administered its laws from the other village that was administering its own.
Yes.
So there was no diversity in the sense that almost all of them had the same line of enforcement, justice enforcement, and most of them were about divorce,
Yes.
stealing,
Yes.
and divorce, stealing, and I think land grabbing.
Okay.
And there you will not find serious crimes such as rape
Yes.
or murder. So when we talk about the various communities across Nagaland, now we have about 16 to 17 tribes. All of them have different set of laws, but then again they are also similar in application, because the justice enforcement is not based on persecution as such. You just mentioned that someone who committed murder, they were banished from that village,
Yes.
but they could still go over to a different town or village and to live peacefully.
Yes.
So the sense justice information during enforcement during those days was based on what you call supernatural or supernatural retribution, divine retribution. So for you it's easy to excommunicate this particular person who committed a crime because you felt that this guy is going to get karma later on. Whatever he committed on the people, he's going to get karma. And he's going to get in the same measure as he committed on other people. So it was easier for them to chuck them out instead of, I don't know, beheading them or just jailing them or use some kind of a punishment apparatus like we do in the modern times. Yes. So there's a lot of diversity, yes, and there are a lot of different rules by each of the community members. But then again, like I said, the rules are similar, but the nature of crimes again are also different. I think the Sumi people have punishment set out for people who commit murder, for example, but I don't know about the Lotha people. I've never heard of anything as such, and even the Au community, I do not think that they have customary laws in that sense that is directly for murder, but the punishment are all of the same, more or less the same. You get excommunicated, banished from your village, or you have to pay fine in terms of land or meat. So the punishments are different, but the application is generally, again, they do not vary much. So because of these differences, way back in 2009 and 2010, that the Chief Minister of Nagaland, Nifirio, he was the Chief Minister then too, he said the Naga people need to have a set of codified customary laws where all the tribes and each set of their laws would be made into a single document that can be enforced across every community uniformly. So that was one of the statements that he gave during the time 2009, 2010, during that area. And I believe that the Nagaland GP Federation was also engaged in that conversation, but how far that conversation was taken forward, I do not know yet, because as far as we know now, we have not heard of the government or the community leaderships approving or publishing any set of common customary laws that will work across the 16 or the 17 tribes of Nagaland actually.
All right, now coming back to the law that safeguards Naga's particular rights, we've got the Article 371A, sir, and in which it empowers the specific village councils of certain rights and safeguards with matters related to religion, customary practices, land, and now even the criminal justice system. Over the past few years, we've also seen a new phenomenon that is slowly cropping up, in which the police have also had their final word, but then the organizations involved in this particular conflict also have made their say. Now this is in particular with regards to jurisdiction in villages. So there have been instances where the village council's frontal organizations, it could be the youth organization, the village youth organization, or the village students union, in which the members of this particular union are there on the road, and they have been, they have set up like a check post, and then they were frisking cars, in which a lot of commuters faced a lot of challenges because they were stopped unnecessarily, and they were caused harassment, it seems. That is according to the victims' allegations. On the other hand, the Nagaland police has said that no organization has that particular power to actually stop somebody, check and frisk apart from the government administration themselves. But sir, don't you think there is some sort of confusion when it comes to the application of Article 371A, which states that the village council in its own jurisdiction has some certain rights, whereas now the Nagaland police has strongly come out and said that no organization has been given the power, or there is no legislation stating that these organizations have the power to stop. So is this also some kind of friction between the two types of justice systems here in Nagaland, one where the village council has certain powers and where overall the executive power lies with the police? And how do you think this problem could be solved in the days to come, or even in the near future, sir?
Yeah, to be fair, I think most of the time our community members, our youth and our women, they are compelled to take certain sets of actions when the administration is absent, or when the administration and the police are not really doing their job. But again, on the other side, the police and administration also cannot be everywhere at once. So they cannot be there to keep the situation in control all the time, and it is not that they have to be there at every spot to prevent something untoward. So there are times that our community members, especially our youth and our women, have taken the law in their own hands, and it is true that these kind of actions, such as stopping traffic, searching and frisking people, these are not within their ambit. And again, we have to make a differentiation between law enforcement and policing. Policing is policing has a lot to do with maintaining order within the community and then enforcing the law against people who break the law. And administration on the other side refers to a set of code of conduct among the community that they have to abide by. They have to keep their duties and be responsible citizens, that they do not break the law over which the police have been entrusted with enforcing.
Yes.
So policing and administration are two things here, but like you said earlier, there is a friction because maybe all of us, we still need to learn a little bit about our education, our legal system, the one that has been set by the government of India and the Constitution of India, and the other set of the other set of laws that our communities, our customary laws have set for us. So there will be friction in this regard, Akive.
Yes.
But one thing we can be very sure is, although Article 371 says that all the customary and legal practices, customary rights and laws that the Naga people have been using for centuries, they are all to be administrated only by the community organizations,
yes,
the society leadership. So yeah, that is that is something set in stone.
Yes.
But then again, like we have discussed earlier, there are a lot of types of criminal activities that have been defined over the many years. There are new crimes. I mean, new crimes. Those actions that were not considered crimes, now they are considered crimes, for instance. And there are a lot of crimes which the government of India and its laws recognize, but which our customary laws, they don't recognize. For example, we spoke about murder,
yes,
and we spoke about molestation and
yes,
sexual assault,
yes,
and rape. So our laws are our proper establishment laws are not equipped to deal with the kind of laws that the community organizations are to implement when all these new crimes are committed in the area.
yes.
So there is bound to be a friction, and that is the reason why Chief Minister Nefirio had called during 2009-2010 that we should sit together, we should codify all our laws, and we should also compare it with the things that have changed over during the past about 100 years for Nagaland at least. So there's a lot of friction between the community and the laws that are represented by the police and the political administration as we know today.
All right, on another aspect, so there's a common concern or a common voice, or rather a rising concern, which is the fact that over the past few days, due to the emergence of new media, we've seen that crimes have been committed. The police go and spring into action. They arrest the accused people. They charge them under certain sections of the then IPC or the IPC. But now with the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, they are being charged under certain sections of the BNS. But the charges, the application of the charge are all visible. But after the accused person reaches custody, we hardly hear about the end product of the particular case, or rather there is hardly any information, or rather there is no follow-up to that particular story and as to what happened to the accused, whether the case has reached the court or not. And somehow in that whole process of the justice delivery system, the people of Nagaland lose faith in the judiciary in that matter. So why do you think such instances keep happening when it comes to particular crimes such as murder, extortion, abduction, or maybe even sexual assault, molestation, rape, which is a rising concern in our Naga society? We've seen that happen in so many places here in Nagaland, in various districts of Nagaland. But do you feel that because of the lack of communication after the cases, or rather after sections of the IPC or the BNS have been put, because of the lack of communication, there is a loss of trust in the justice delivery system? Do you think this could change? And also, do you believe that with the live telecast of cases being heard in the court, or the sessions court, or the high court, or the Kohima bench of the Guwahati High Court, do you think that through such steps or activities, that trust could be regained by the Naga public?
This is a difficult question, Akivi, I'm not qualified to be really speaking about some of the legal aspects of justice administration or even policing and criminal prosecution. I'm not qualified, but at a personal level, I think yes, there is a lack of trust by the people in the policing system in Nagaland, and this is not something that we have expressed for the first time.
Yes.
And even during those days, we grew up in a time when conflict was commonplace.
Yes.
Shooting, killing, violence, it was commonplace. So somehow we grew up in an environment where the narrative was strongly against the police and the administration, because as you have said, we have heard a lot of things about and the police are not really transparent also.
Yes.
As a journalist, I think all of us, we have experienced a lot of times when everything is left, investigation is going on.
Yes.
So sometimes that can be an excuse for you to not be able to have any relevant information for the public. But if you look at how police establishments outside operate, they always keep the public informed.
Yes.
This is the step, this is the progress so far, and we're going to this step next. So we don't have that kind of transparency. I don't know, because our media relations culture in Nagaland is a very new thing, and that will also go for the police. So they don't really try to build some kind of a rapport with the public. So that is one thing, so which the people will see it as a phenomenon that the police administration is trying to build so they can hide facts. So there is no trust. 2007, 2008, it was during the time, during the Wongram incident at Purna Bazaar.
Yes.
Like sleepless nights, scary nights, a lot of shooting, lots of houses were burned. And it was, I remember that during the time, this police officer who was at East Police Station, and now he is at PHQ, he told me this, as you remember, that night. We catch all these undergrounds, but it's the courts that lets them off. I still remember that, and I don't know how far that is true, but I think the narrative of distrust is very strong.
Yes.
So I do not really blame the people also, and I think I have also personally experienced that. I don't know, things might have been changing, or we are just exceptions.
Yes.
But I've also experienced that our police system needs to also look deeper into their performance also, and I think they need to try to connect with the people a little bit more.
All right, so in conclusion, sir, just a small question, which is, the fact is, we are seeing an increase of criminal reports being filed in police stations, or we have seen that there is a certain change in the mindset of a Naga individual when it comes to being a victim of a certain crime. Now, the approach, or rather, the fact that they can approach a police station and file an FIR is growing, and that seems to be changing in the way justice is delivered here in Nagaland. But so there are certain crimes that take place in the remote villages where the police have come up and said that you should come up and report it to the police station itself and not leave it and not just be left and suffer with the injustice that is being done to you. But do you believe that with the fact that now with the emergence of media too, as soon as you report a certain crime to a police station, the media reaches there and then everything is advertised, or rather it comes out in the public domain. But do you think that people in the villages, they do not want their particular crime to come out in the public domain, which is why they prefer to go to the village councils and get their justice from the councils and keep their case very secretive, or rather not let it out in the open and let all the public know about it? Do you think that this is also a factor as to why very less cases are filed in the remote areas and more cases are being filed in the urban areas?
Generally, there's a very complex set of behaviors and attitudes that still govern the communities in Nagaland. Reputation is one.
Yes.
You don't really want to bring this up in public because you fear there will be some kind of a pushback in the future for you. So reputation, family honor is there.
Yes.
So that's the reason why they don't really want to bring it out at a platform where the whole issue will be reflected negatively on the people involved.
Yes.
And then second is, we have talked about distrust also,
Yes.
but that is also not the entire story. So they would prefer to just go to the village councils and just settle things quietly.
Yes.
And then the third, I think, like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of administrative complexities involved in having to run from the village to the towns,
Yes.
meeting this and that, paperwork, bureaucratic. There are a lot of protocols involved, a lot of paperwork, a lot of actions to be followed up on when you want to seek justice. And that is also one reason why the whole amicably settlement press releases,
Yes.
as I think you have heard of that,
Yes.
way back 2005 all the way from 2015. I think we used to get a lot of these amicably settled cases where the communities, they just sit together and they forgive each other. The Christian faith also works, and it has a role to play in justice enforcement in that sense, and it takes the case out of the police's hands because they have already settled it among themselves. I remember one time one of the Naga underground factions, they killed a Gambura. I think it was in Zuniboto, and another in Dimapur, and later it was found that it was mistaken identity. They killed those Gamburas, another person at New Market, if I recall, and they all sat together in the name of Christian faith, forgave each other, and done. They could not bring the dead back to life.
Yes.
The family is still broken, shattered, but it was the undergrounds. I don't know which faction it was, but it was the undergrounds, and they always win in amicably settled cases. So there's a level of complexities where the aspects of reputation, family honor, administrative inconveniences, and even the role of our faith as Christians play a role. So it's a very complicated subject, and I'm not really qualified to talk on that.
All right. Now, in very shortly, sir, since you brought up this point, so basically, what you're trying to say is that the Indian legal system, the theme is more based on the fact that justice should be delivered, and when it comes to the Naga customary law, the theme is basically more about forgiveness. So that's basically what you're trying to say, Nasser.
And that is the reason why it is difficult for us to understand the law, but it's easier for us to understand forgiveness.
All right.
And that is why there's a lot of friction between the two.
All right, so thank you so much for joining me on this special newsroom speaking on the customary law versus the Indian legal system in Nagaland. Thank you so much for giving us your insights. Well, that was our associate editor, Mr. Al Nguli, and we had just spoken about the application of the Indian legal system in Nagaland, and also the stark, unique right that Nagas have enshrined in Article 371A, where matters relating to Naga religion, customary practice, land, criminal justice system is protected, and that the Naga system would be applicable in Nagaland. Well, that seems to be causing a lot of friction in the way justice is delivered in Nagaland, but there is an essence in the way the 371A has protected the Naga identity, the Naga custom, and the way our Naga lineage is supposed to continue. On the other hand of it, the Nagaland police too is trying to educate the citizens that when it comes to certain crimes, it's better to report it to the police station rather than leave it at the hands of the council. But then this topic would best be justified if people from both sides come sit together and also chalk out the differences, and also try and make a codified law that Mr. Al Nguli just mentioned, that the CM was trying to codify the Naga customary law, but that conversation happened in the year 2008-9. So we hope that this discussion will continue to progress in a way where justice is equal for all in this country, and especially in Nagaland. Well, for more topics like this, keep watching Hornbill TV.